So what are we talking about today?
Today I was hoping to cover non-flavor tables.
Perfect. Let's hop into the podcast.
Let's do it.
So we've had JPEGs. People are paying a lot of money for a lot of JPEGs and they do a whole bunch of different things. Why MP3s? Why MP3 is going to be key, the next iteration of NFTs? Why are they going to be important moving forwards? What are the advantages they have? Are they better than JPEGs? Are they not as good? And that's why they've come second. What are your thoughts on the music space of NFTs?
That's quite a loaded question right there. A lot to get through. But yeah, of course, as you mentioned, we've had the JPEGs. I think everybody's looking for the next sort of Bored Ape Yacht Club. What is that going to be? And everyone's going through every single NFT on the market, expecting that to be the next one. I just think that personally that they're looking in the wrong place. We've seen quite a big emergence in the music space in terms of music NFTs, the virtual concerts, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where the next sort of gold mine tends to lie.
As you say, it was a loaded question. Do you teach your 2-year-old child to draw a picture first or to play an instrument? That is the equivalent of where we've got with NFTs, in my opinion.
Okay, I like that. But does the child not start dancing to music before he learns how to draw? He or she before learns how to draw?
I agree that music is more fundamental. A picture is going to draw me in. I'm drawn in by a YouTube thumbnail as opposed to 5 minutes of what they were talking about. Pictures easy, eyes are representing much more important, is the main sense, visual stuff. But audio tends to connect with people on a much deeper level. Yes, there's many amazing pieces of artwork, but if you've got your angsty teenage daughter who's crying out a breakup, she's putting on some emo music. She's not going and looking at Van Gogh's later stages of artwork where it's all just really depressing. He's into emo bands and whatnot. So there is a deeper level that music provides, and that is why, in my opinion, it wasn't the first iteration of NFTs.
That's exactly so. Like you take exactly what you just mentioned. These kids aren't looking at Van Gogh, Pollux, or anything like that. Don't have a clue what that is. However, everybody is touched by music. So when you consider the total addressable market of music compared to the art industry, then it's miles and miles and miles ahead. That does come with a lot of implications because there's a lot of structure that's already been built around the industry. But I think that right now we're witnessing a suite of technology like within the NFTs or whether it's in the metaverse, all of these kind of things are merging together and building what the potential of the future of the music landscape looks like. And that's why I've switched on to it.
I agree. We had first form of artwork is cave paintings, but there is something fundamental that even some remote tribe, if they have a little drum circle or something going, the rhythms do get you almost whipped up into a frenzy. That is something on a very, I don't even think nowadays it's well understood or well researched. There is something very special about music, but it is a later generation art, and it does take longer to integrate and to implement than drawing some pictures or something like that.
Yeah,
like we pay for Spotify and Apple Music subscriptions. We don't. They don't even exist, I believe, for pictures.
Yeah.
So I agree, and there's obviously going to be a new technology. Have seen it with music that is integrated into streaming. Art is, I guess you've got like digital picture formats, but it's not had the same technological revolution that we have seen in music file formats. And I would say that now we're just seeing the latest music file format. We're not actually seeing anything different.
Yeah, that's exactly where I see it. It's important to understand the technological advantages in the music industry. Obviously, we all know that we started with records. When records were a thing, like it was only a few select people that, like, obviously when they were first invented, there was only a few select people that actually could get their hands on them. So you were pretty much upper class if you even come across one of these record players, like records at a party or over somebody's house or whereas you go to consume your music in those days and ages. And then we saw the evolution into the press of the CD, made it a lot more compact. People could actually, and a lot cheaper, so a lot more widely available to the masses, which led obviously to the MP3 downloadable. You can now download it wherever. You pay £1 a song. Now, this is really important because now what you can do is take one song out of the album that you want to listen to or want to buy and purchase and own, as opposed to just having to have the whole album. And then further to that, because of the likes of Napster and LimeWire and everything like that, we then started this journey of streaming music where everything was listening. You can listen to anything for free or for £10 a month, and you can listen to pretty much any song in the entire world. So obviously, that's amazing for the consumer. We can listen to music, and I know people that listen to music literally 24/7 because of these streaming services. How there is obviously give and take, and there's a big cost in the artist sort of revenue. They're losing a lot because of the business model of streaming music. Obviously, we can't continue to pay people £10 for every album that's purchased if every single person would just pick up a song whenever they want. Does that make sense?
It does. I think we could go even further, that there was no vinyl, maybe a cappella onlys or just a drum loop or something like that. But you do get stem files, because breaking down a smaller amount of music, that is worthwhile. If the barrier to entry, i.e. you don't have to press vinyls, which are expensive, the barrier to entry is a lot easier. So I'm going to give you a two-part, more loaded questions. Two-part. First of all, what would you say are the biggest threats or the biggest kind of negatives, disadvantages that currently an artist would experience in the music space? And then I'll give you a heads up. The second part of the question is, how do you think this technology remedies some of those problems?
Where do I start? Now, you mean in the traditional space, yeah?
Yeah. So if you're an artist, let's say you're just starting out, and then also you're a really well-established artist, let's go from the two. You can take both or either perspectives. How does the current system serve them well? How does it serve them poorly? How can the technology improve it for them?
I'd like to concentrate on the sort of up and coming artists, because they're the ones that I see benefiting the most in the coming years from the new technology for several reasons, but we can get into them later. So starting with your up and coming artists, which, let's be honest, there are millions and millions and millions of all across the world in all their different select genres, which have been given tools like these streaming services, and especially with the advent of technology and actual production of music, that has been awesome and gives everybody a sort of equal opportunity, especially when you consider the likes of TikTok, how not easy it is to go viral, but everybody's got a lot of tools, equal tools in this day and age to produce and distribute their music. However, like I just mentioned, one of the biggest restraining factors of the tools that these guys are given, and take Spotify, you're going to have to get up to about 1 million streams. It was a bit under, and obviously some contracts do differ, but for 1 million streams on Spotify, you're looking at about $4,000. So just to put that into perspective, like 1 million streams is a hell of a lot of players and a hell of a lot of people to touch, and you're getting a measly $4,000 for that. So it's a lot of work, a lot of effort for a very low return. However, if you flip this on the head and start talking about perhaps like if one of these artists was to release a music NFT, all they have to do really is find 100 of their core listeners, their super fans is what I'll refer to them probably through most of this talk, and release an NFT. Maybe they release 100, so each one of those can pick up a piece. They pay $100 for it because they are their super fans and they want to showcase that they've been there from the beginning, that they've been obviously listening and following a journey and want to show their support. We've all got stories of that one musician that we've seen years and years ago. For me, there's been countless times, but I remember one of them was Mumford & Sons. I seen them so early, to the point where it was in a local town social club, and I could practically smell their breath through the whole of the set. And then they went on to blow up, and then I seen them maybe 3-4 years later at one of the biggest festivals in the UK. So now imagine that they had an NFT released early on, and I went and I was just like, wow, these guys blew my mind. What an awesome gig. I can go and pick up one of their NFTs, which helps support them travel a little bit more, cost me $100, and it just shows my support, my proper fandom, shows that I want them to succeed. And then that 3-4 years ago, I could have sold that again when they were playing on the main stage to 10,000 people all at once for a hell of a job if I wanted to, or I could have held on to it just to sit in my sort of public wallet. And show people that I was there from the beginning. Instead of having this talk, I got proof.
100%. It was as you said that it's reminded me of a little story, and it's fairly relevant for this week. It's when I was good over 10 years ago now. That's a band I really liked, Avenged Sevenfold, heavy metal band. There was a few different tiers of pictures that they released. There was a bronze, silver, and gold one, but they came with a amount of guitar picks on them. There was a finite amount of them, and they were signed. And at some point when I was moving countries, I was like, I can't put these anywhere, whatever. I binned them. Since then, went in the UK, went to a gig of theirs, and at the end, it wasn't the guitar pick. A load of guitar picks got just thrown out into the crowd, but I managed to pick one, and that was on my little ornamenty showy off shelf. And it's ridiculous because I paid for the other ones and I got that one free as being part of the gig, but it meant so much more because I had a connection with them, because I was there live with them or whatever. And recently I've left the UK, I've come up to Thailand and dotting around the space for a while now. And I had to thin down my stuff, and I haven't been able to bring that guitar pick with me. However, next to my gym is a tattoo studio, literally connected into the same building, and plastered on their windows is the Avenged Sevenfold logo and says Avenged Sevenfold. So I had to get a tattoo there, and it would have been the best thing possible because I'm having a nice chat with this guy and whatnot. He's a really good guy and just a nice person and everything. It's fucking tragic hearing his lockdown story and everything like that. Like, fucking hell, people got fucked here. So we were having a nice connection. Obviously, I'm lying there on the bed as he was doing a little stick and poke on my arm, and we're chatting about everything. And obviously, like, the music was a common bond. And I said to him, I was like, hey man, like, I don't know why you would put that on your window, but it absolutely worked and it's drawn me in there. And it would have been such a great thing, like, if I could have just given as a little bit extra tip of just, hey, here's my NFT, I was at that gig or whatever. It's something that we shared 8,000 miles away from where it happened to me, but we both like the music and we have a conversation about it or whatever. And it's not to brag like, oh, I was at this gig, they were touring all around at that point. I enjoyed being at the gig, that was for me. But a little NFT or something, how fucking sick, you're like, hey man, what's your wallet? Ping, here you go. So I do. It was a bit of a tangent. So obviously, how companies are working at the moment. For example, you have Uber, that was a billion-dollar company way before it ever made a profit. That you have many of these streaming services and whatnot that obviously like need to make some revenue. Spotify is probably the best example. That the quickest way to make a return for your investors, because like they are businesses, that is their fundamental purpose, is to extract money from as many people as possible, and therefore you target making money from customers rather than having a longevity thing going with the artists. So everyone giving us 10 quid, we'll take a percentage of that. We don't have to care about the artist. We're trying to get profitability within 5 to 10 years, as opposed to set up a business model. Because if you think about freemium Spotify, here's a couple of ads. None of your favorite artists are able to extract a living out of that. So what is different about the file format that artists can leverage that you think is so compelling over the current model? Because let's be honest, you're talking about competing with Spotify's $1 billion company, Apple, $1 trillion company. Yes, Apple Music's a small part of that, but their services are a key part of their core business. Why do you think this technology can so fundamentally challenge such behemoths as that?
Okay, yeah. First, I would like to say that I don't necessarily believe that these are here to rival or to compete directly with these behemoths of companies. I always think that there's going to be a place for free music, and I think there always should be a place for listening to music for free. And I believe that obviously the business models, although they are a bit broken in terms of how they not so much treat the artist, but how they represent the artist, all these kind of things. There's multiple stories of Taylor Swift taking off all of her music off the platforms because of the unfair payment and stuff like this. However, like for a large majority of people, I do feel like they do hold true and they do serve a really good purpose. However, it's really important to remember that all of these companies that come out, obviously, I think Spotify's Swedish, isn't it? But like all of these Silicon Valley companies.
If you don't think that this will replace those large businesses that are already existing, why do you think this technology has such an edge that it can compete with someone who has billions to spend on a marketing campaign?
Take Spotify. There are, as I mentioned earlier, there's millions of songs being uploaded every single day, right? Those artists that release their songs onto these platforms have zero touch points whatsoever with their audience, first of all. Obviously, completely undervalued in terms of the streaming because of the business model of these platforms. And thirdly, if they want to target or they want to speak and reach out to the people that are listening or streaming their music, they have maybe 3 or 4 data points of which country they are in, possibly the age group. However, we're stepping into a world now with these NFTs where if you hold one of these, you can reach out directly for free to every single one of those members. Let's say we start a Discord group, and you, using the Me6, you have to link up your NFT to your Twitter. And now you have a direct touch point with every single one of the patrons out there that had bought one of your first NFTs, or one of your one of only, or even perhaps just somebody or everybody that went to your most recent gig or concert, whatever it was that you went to. So you can now start building direct communication with every single one of your members, and you can start sifting through that then to see who they really are, what they like. Do they perhaps help you release your next album, choosing songs, helping you through the creative process, the direction of where you want to go? Because at the end of the day, these creatives, as in the artists, making music for you. So why do the current platforms not allow you to talk directly with the people who this is being built for? I think that's one of the biggest utilities. And essentially, that's a really, really long ass way of saying that we can now build communities that are true, strong, and a lot more focused.
I think maybe another way of saying it, or to observe it in the negative, is to turn it on its head. And Spotify tells me, obviously we're both English gentlemen here, but so Spotify tells me that I have got a niche market with Swedish 60-year-olds. I have no idea what music I'm making for them. I don't think most people, maybe in your home nation, you have some idea of what demographic that might be falling in. Whereas the amount of data points that you can get off from an NFT holder, then you can not necessarily, because it's not saying that this sound is prescribed for that person or whatever, but you can really start to understand your end user a lot better. But I don't know, there's so many with it. I think the interoperability for me is something that's going to be a very compelling narrative. The gamification, the GameFi side of things, I personally think it's going to not flop, just take a lot longer than people are hoping for. For example, not that it's Web3, but Cyberpunk, massive AAA game, respected studio, respected publisher, everything behind it, still flop, still super buggy on release and everything like that. If you can't get that release done properly, you're going to struggle to get a blockchain released properly, because a serious blockchain like Solana, which had serious backing and money in it, still goes down multiple times per year. So even just operating on the network, Solana is built as the gaming because of the high transactions per second that it has. So even the network running on time and running properly and staying up has clearly been shown to be a recurring issue. But the interoperability, I think, will be the easiest narrative. The games that you already play, if the artists that you like, they've released 100 of them, and every time you kill someone on Fortnite or Warzone, I don't know, Queen's another one bites the dust, or something similar comes on as we've already seen, people would love to emote or do emote on people's dead bodies, their virtual dead bodies or whatever. But connecting with the artists, so then getting that profile, that bit more of, say you did like Cyberpunk 2077, I believe this, let's try and do something that's themed off of that. Let's do something that is sampling the gunshots in Warzone. Let me do something of the most popular emotes on Fortnite. I'm going to sample some little snippets of there, and I'm going to make a track, because it turns out an overwhelming proportion of my customers, my clients. That's a good question for you. In Web3, are they customers? Are they clients? Are they community? Do we need another word? And if so, could you suggest one?
Good question. I think the way that I like to look at this, and it's the way that I've been looking at the large majority of businesses across the entire landscape, is building communities. I feel like communities is that buzzword that it's like gamification. It's if you go to any kind of money manager now and you're looking for some money and you use community, then you're probably going to get that money. I think it's the cornerstone of business, though, because once again, it comes back to what I just mentioned. If you have a direct touch point, you can speak directly with the people. It holds so much power. But to touch on what you were saying in the virtual space, something that I've spent a lot of time investing into anyway. Now, obviously, we've seen the rise of blockchain gaming across this sector, but even before we even go there, like you mentioned a couple traditional games like Fortnite and whatnot, we've already seen the emergence of music into these platforms. Take Fortnite and Travis Scott. We had Grande. we had Marshmallow. So we're already seeing an emergence of these spaces together, but using this technology, we can take that to a whole new level. For example, whether it's a skin of a music artist, that then you have to buy that. To be able to buy the skin, you get access to a virtual concert that they're going to play in the game. Or whether it's, do you know, there's a whole host of things that we can do here. However, the most important thing is obviously that's happening right now. But the most important thing here is everything will from now on be completely trustless. So you know that buying this NFT, you know that the artist is getting their fair share. And you know that then you can take that to an aftermarket, the secondary markets, and you can continue to trade that for more or less, or however the market values it fairly. And the artist is always being represented fairly in that transaction without you having to trust anything. And I think that is something that really makes this sort of technology stands out.
So there was a few months ago now a competition on Fortnite between two factions, one red, one blue. And if you completed a certain amount of points, you got the skins, the guns, and character outfits, or whatever. You could imagine potentially such a point that the community votes for an artist's album cover, and only if you're right, or potentially, I don't know, maybe only if you're right, or whichever one you voted for, you get that NFT. And therefore, you actually start incorporating quite a lot of interesting market dynamics. Because if someone just spends, I don't know, 2,000 hours making this sick album artwork that's just embossed with gold and it does all these cool 3D things or whatever, but it's quite a niche audience that it hits, it pleases. There's kind of the same as a really rare coin. That yes, like most of the rarest coins are mistakes and just things that never made it quite into the public. There's this really bespoke, custom design, bit weird, but to have the only one of it's cool. Whereas the vast majority of your audience would be incentivized to have the correct one. That if you could show that, hey, I was there at the origin, I voted, like I'm a proper fan because I know what the best artwork is. Therefore, those fans get value that way. So you simultaneously incentivize people to pick what genuinely is most likely to be the most widely receptive thing, as well as encouraging uniqueness and bespoke artworks to be created.
Absolutely. And you can take that a whole, like 100 other ways. You could have people just submitting what they want the artwork to look like, and then you can just choose somebody and they can get royalties for that if they get chosen to represent that art piece. There's a million things that we can do from here. And I'll be perfectly honest with you that I've spent the last couple of years speculating on where I think this space is going to go, but I know for a fact that as long as I've spent on this, like I'm still not even scratching the surface of what this space looks like in 10 years' time. There's projects that nobody can really imagine right now because some certain technology hasn't been developed yet. So it's going to be an ever expanding space that I'm super interested in learning and following and really trying to dig into and get a better understanding of, which I suppose is what this is about, really, is trying to build a community of people who share our interest and intrigue in this space, and hopefully speak to some of the leading people, thought leaders, project leaders, everything like that, to come together in one space where we can all learn together, all share ideas, all try and build upon where we think this is going. And hopefully as a community, we can actually start bringing some decent tools back to the artists who deserve this.
I definitely agree, because there is so much that needs to go on. That I think if you're at the point where the internet started becoming that bit more adopted, and there's a famous clip that people play in crypto of Bill Gates on, it's not Jimmy Fallon, it's one of those late night talk shows with a older guy, maybe Letterman or someone like that. And he's talking about the internet, and he's, oh, you could listen to a baseball game live on there. And the guy, whoever the host is, he goes, have you not heard of radio? Who would have thought that the most viewed video on YouTube for years would have been one baby biting another baby's finger? Like, you're not optimizing the technology, but if you could have, I don't know, orchestrated that video earlier on, probably made a lot of money out of it or something, fantastic opportunity. that I think that's one of the exciting parts about where we are currently with the music NFT side of things, is that we're not entirely sure all of the different ways that it's going. We get some forewarning with the JPEG NFTs, that we can see that they started off as a little bit of a joke, but then they've come out. And I think there's actually going to be a load of really great examples for new marketing options, like things that just didn't exist in the current structure, that the JPEGs have already tried, the artists already had go at releasing. But art doesn't have royalties. Music does, typically. Potentially, you could lend an artwork to a gallery and you get some percentage, but it's just not the same thing. How many views? What are they paying per view? Okay, well, we charge this much. Not, they've gone into the museum and we've got 10,000 artworks and yours is one. It's more important. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So you have the CEO. We have Elon Musk. Obviously, he's the head of all these companies. But not just as important, but very important, even the janitors in the buildings, people cleaning them, people on the production line, people doing all of this, that almost we're going to see fans become employees to some extent, or that would be the business equivalent, that you have some hotshot leading the way, is the face of everything, but your marketers are going to be your fans. You're like doing the nitty gritty, like running the business. You would invest in the company. I don't know, for example, Ford. I'm not driving at the moment. I was on Golfs before that. But if it was discounted, I would invest in Fords, even though I don't buy any of the products. So just because you don't listen to an artist, like, you'd still potentially get into it because the fundamentals are good, which would then become the creator fan dynamics of some sort. I don't know. I feel actually that would possibly be the relationship that it most closely mirrors, because it's not a god to its servants. It's not this kind of distance relationship. NFTs are designed to bridge the gap rather than preserve. Oh, he's this massive hotshot. He's on that stage. Here's all this security. It's the digital way of literally bridging that gap and being on the stage there with them, which some low employees would meet the CEO.
You make a really good point there with the sort of emergence of a different business model for these artists. One thing that I find myself saying quite a lot when I'm speaking to a lot of people about this space, and I'm speaking to obviously musicians left, right, and center, I'm trying to educate them on what's happening here. And the most important thing is either become or look out for the artist that has that CEO energy, the one that can organize himself as well as being creative, as well as thinking about his marketing platforms, his marketing options and stuff like that, and his distribution plans and all of this. I think this is what we're going to start seeing really evolve in the space, is they're going to be the ones to watch. Just the same as like this whole creator economy is being built around YouTubers, like with that being a platform, obviously TikTok, everything like that. It's quite clear where the industry is going in terms of content creation. These artists are just becoming one of those. Therefore, they're going to have to learn a few more skills that unfortunately not going to be able to just sit on the sidelines and just create in their like little dungeons and then throw songs out there occasionally. If you do want to build this audience, then it's going to become a little bit more hard work. However, one thing that I tuned into very early on was the potential for a label DAO. Imagine creating an economy of people where everybody has their value. So you build a community of designers, like your art pieces, if you're not just going to use DALL-E from now on, whether it's like management, whether it's people that are just well connected in the scene, whether it's people that have connections with venues, or whether they own venues, or do you know what I mean? There's now a way to build essentially what I'm calling a DAO. And if you don't know what that is, I'm sure there's plenty of information out there to get you caught up. But a decentralized autonomous organization of people that come together with goal in mind, and that's to promote your music, because everybody's going to be bought in. Everyone's going to have one North Star, which is make this music as valuable as possible. And once you've got an army of people behind you, then who knows what can go. And your job, your role there really becomes create the best music that you possibly can, and create the best team or community or organization around that music.
I feel like, because it's almost this, and I saw the term get batted around in DeFi a little bit, is you had CDeFi, which is centralized, decentralized finance, that you have a centralized entity, artist or group, that you're building a decentralized community around. So it's almost like DAOs with it or something along those lines. But just a point that you made earlier, to somewhat disagree with you said it's going to get harder for the artists to potentially, they have to learn these new skills. I was watching a couple of weeks ago Elvis, and not to ruin it for anyone, but he did die quite a few years ago now, so hopefully no spoilers, but spoilers. So he was locked into a contract because when he tried to leave, he was really sick of his manager. He made up a whole bunch of phony expenses that were shown to be frauds, but he had to keep doing shows in Vegas at some expensive casino, and he couldn't do the tour around Europe that he really wanted to do. So the point of that is that literally the king, like the king, is as good as the show as possible. The business, he got screwed over. He got screwed over on the deal on the business side of things by his manager. So what technology can done is not just that you can have transparency of your audience. You could compare the terms of your NFT contract to everyone else in the space, which I know a lot of artists, when they get offered a record deal, no one gets offered a record deal with the previous 500 record deals being transparent. So you never know if you've done well or not in the negotiations. If you have the Web3 side of things, you can see, be it a DAO that offers you some kind of record label, be it anyone or whatever, you can compare the offers that already are out there for a variety of different things, and you can really try and learn what is your fair value in the market. So I agree there is some work that is required to be done there. There's almost like there's safety in the herd kind of element that you can take it as a small artist. Like, this is literally what everyone else does. And I assume someone has read the terms and conditions at some point. Like that's probably our best example, because everyone else clicks the terms and conditions, and we assume some person has read them at some point. We blindly click them as well. And because there's this brute force approach to it, we assume none of us are actually getting screwed. We don't know anyone that's read them, but we just assume someone has. With a record label, everyone's negotiating it on a personal level, and this is just turning it into that public. If there was something shocking there, it would have been found. Maybe one of your fans is a lawyer or whatever, goes through it all and says, hey man, you're getting screwed here. If you change this, you make all of us 10% more. So there's something new they need to learn, but it's the same way that they need to learn the internet. Everyone needs to learn the internet. I don't think it's prohibitively more that they need to learn. It's just we all need to learn this, and this is how it can apply specifically to them.
Yeah, yeah, 100% agree. But perhaps I should have clarified that I meant bringing that sort of CEO energy in terms of they now understand that they need to become active as hell on Twitter or get a ghostwriter. There's a few more steps in the distribution or of the building of this community that I believe like they're going to have to concentrate on a little bit more. So when I say like that, bring that CEO energy, it's about like bring in a bit more of like a time management and a sort of like a marketing plan and all of this, because there's only a couple thousand artists that are releasing NFTs right now. So let's put that into perspective. Like, how many millions of artists are there on Spotify right now? Do you know, the very, very early stages. Therefore, if you come into this space now, you have first mover advantage regardless. So if you can get onto Twitter, if you can get into some of these spaces and you can start really kicking up a fuss and people like your music, then there is literally no stopping you. It takes a lot more time. I'm not going to deny that. It's going to take a lot more time out of your day because, once again, you've got to learn this technology. And it's not simple, it's not basic, but then you've got to start implementing these things.
The ability to get to a sustainable income, will it take them longer going down the Web 2 or the Web 3 routes? So I understand they can upload some songs to Spotify much quicker than if there's a noob who doesn't understand Web 3 technology. It will be quicker to upload a file than it is to get into the space. Do you think it will take them longer to make a living? Because that's ultimately what they care about.
I feel like you're going to need a serious lifeline or an act of God to excel you to the top lines. If you just go the traditional route through Web 2 media, you're going to need to hit something big. You're going to need to get a trending track on TikTok and continue supporting it realistically. Otherwise, like, I know multiple musicians who have been uploading to Spotify for tens of years and still haven't got their million streams yet. So 100% I believe is a lot quicker to go down this route. And that's just down to what I mentioned earlier, is a much smaller market. It's a much smaller market. Anybody who gets into this space right now essentially believe that you've got first mover advantage. I believe that everybody should be paying attention to this. And I spend most of my week talking to artists, telling them how they need to be paying attention to this industry. It's no surprise that I think it's pretty non-negotiable. That is the next step in the evolution of music as we know it, especially digital music.
If you're an artist in the space right now, could you rank your top 3 protocols that you would release on? The one you would prefer to release on, that goes offline, next one after that, and explain the reasoning for doing so.
Absolutely. I'm just going to say for any new artists out there, which I imagine this question is directed to, get about it, just learn about sound XYZ, XYZ if you're American. Now, the reason I say that is let's keep this as simple as possible. What they're doing over there is releasing NFTs, a selection of NFTs, whether it's 100 to 1,000 per one track. You have a listening party, and then you have the option to go and mint that track. Why is this important, and why am I recommending you to go and just spend your time there? Because it's what I believe is like the sort of core backbone of the industry. It's keeping it simple enough for you to go and dive into, participate a little bit. You can go and mint a free NFT so you can see how it works. You can join in a Twitter space a half hour before they release these and start maybe communicating with some of the artists who have already done a release on this platform. As I said, it's a very small network. So that's 100% the place to start. Keep it very simple. I believe, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this, there's a future where we're streaming music for free, and there's a future where we're in conjunction to streaming music for free, we're minting, we're collecting these one-off pieces or these NFTs just to show support and show that we were there and bring everything together. And I believe that's the best platform right now to do.
Thank you for that. Final curveball. I was reading something earlier and I want to dive into it more, but we'll do that at some other point. So a third of all the development that's going on Cardano is to do with music NFTs. So Ethereum, biggest network. Polygon, cheap way of doing it on Ethereum. BNB, if you want to release a scam, is very cheap to do. Also, definitely legitimate other uses. Please don't sue me. Solana, cheap, high transactions per second. Those were the main 4.
Yeah, I would dig into Flow a little bit as well because it's super cheap, for practically free.
Algorand as well. Is LimeWire on there?
Yeah, so there is a bunch of, obviously, just it's one of these things that just the same as you have multiple accounts on different social medias. So you have your login for your Twitter, you have your login for your Facebook, you have your login for your Instagram, all these kind of things, right? It's going to be exactly the same with all of these different chains. Some of them are going to work and some of them are not going to work. I can't log into my Bebo account anymore or my Vine account anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like some work, some prevail, and some unfortunately don't for a whole host of different reasons. That's not like an excuse to not get involved into any of these. If you can just get into something and get some free mints and understand what's going on, you're soon going to identify what you like. And if you like it, the guarantee is that there's millions of other people else out there that feel the same way.
So Cardano kind of released a working product, but it's just been years doing stringent development. If they're spending that many resources, and realistically, I wouldn't put them in the top 5 networks to release on or whatever. Cardano NFTs, hidden gem, yet to explode, or do you think waste of time flop?
Sinking ship, get the life rafts out. I've been waiting for them to do something for far too long. I don't understand how the market is even as big as it possibly is. But yeah, I'll leave that one there.
Perfect. Obviously, there is some competition between the networks. We saw that. So, as we said, Polygon's the biggest with Ethereum because obviously they're so tightly linked. But Solana at one point had about 25% of the volume of sales. That was pre-FTX collapse, and therefore all of that ecosystem has obviously suffered as a result of that. But each of the other ones, they do offer little advantages here and there. And we have now started to see some competition from, say, so Polygon bought a few big projects off of Solana so that they would move over that way. And potentially we could see, I expect we'll start seeing some big name signing deals so that they can try and claw back some of the market share or whatever, that potentially from Cardano, because they have got a lot of money for the backing. And my other one, I don't even know if they're doing anything with NFTs, and it's been so long since that coin went up. Tezos, XTZ, they've got Formula One marketing. I don't know what else they've been doing. I've had a few adverts from them on YouTube and whatnot, more so than I have from Ethereum. So I feel like they could be a purchaser of a record label or something like that, which we know Snoop's doing that with Death Row Records, isn't he?
As we said at the start, there is a whole host of opportunity here. I personally believe that free is better as we begin this journey. I believe that to reach out to the masses, it needs to be free and it needs to be easy. So whoever can nail the easier sort of user experience with whatever platform they're using, then I believe that they're going to be the winner. Let's be honest. A lot of people are going to want to come in and just trial this. And if they have a good experience minting a free NFT of their favorite artist, or even just minting just a very low value NFT to begin with, then they're going to enjoy their experience. They're going to come back. And as soon as they can build that trust, like exactly the same as, how long did it take you to put your credit card on the internet?
I think I'm too young to answer that question. I was on the internet way before I was allowed to have a credit card. But
There was, yeah, that's fine, but there was a lot of fear, and you were an absolute moron if you were entering your card details into the internet in its early stages. Hence, like the adoption of PayPal, etc. However, now I have multiple cards saved to multiple different apps on my phone. I don't need to go out without my card anymore because I literally just buzz my phone on anything or my watch on anything. There's so many options, and I feel like it's exactly the same in this space.
do you think that when you said about the free release model for music, do you think that will be a new, for your case, say a new Mumford and Sons single or album? That they get a teaser, there's one track, there's the second best one on the album. It's still a bit of a banger, still gets you going a little bit. There's a better one if you pay for the full version.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. I think there are actually already musicians that have done free drops and they've made more money than their priced NFTs just because of secondary market. So just because you're launching something for free, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get your fair share or get any revenue from it. And that's a really important thing to remember. I'm not going to go into what those are because obviously we've been speaking for a very long time now. And I know that you've got to get off to go and enjoy your last evening where you are. So we won't get into it too deep. However, there's definitely a big market for free NFTs here.
No, that all makes sense. So thank you very much for having this chat with me. I guess we've got one final question for you. Obviously, there's new mints going online all the point. Is there anything that you think is a hidden gem that's going to 1,000x this cycle?
Oh yeah, that's easily